All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. Today with my teammates Jasper and Felix and myself, Jan, we're gonna try to dig into a green energy topic and through the magic of data analysis, try to debunk some preconceived idea that we all might have on the topic. But first of all, like to put a bit of context, as you may all know, since the industrial era, mankind has been relying a lot on fossil energy. So basically to do like any kind of like manufacturing, transport and so on, we were using like coal or petrol or and so on. So the CO2 emission that was emitted is directly correlated to the temperature evolution worldwide. And basically it all led to all the consequences that we know, like catastrophe and global warming and so on. So while we were doing this data analysis, we realized that China is the problem, that many people believe that it's all their fault and no one else. But Felix today is gonna show us that through data, let's put a bit of another view on the topic.
Hello, hello. At the top chart, we see that Asia has improved on CO2 emissions in comparison to other countries, but that, of course, doesn't make alone Asia responsible for the global warming, because if we take a look at the bottom right chart, we see that in the past, for example, Europe and America as well had large contributions to the CO2 emissions worldwide as well. And if we shift our perspective, like Jan is going to do it now, into per capita and per country, we can see that, for example, China had very large, not very large, had in comparison like relatively low to the rest CO2 emissions, which underlines the fact that China's CO2 emissions do not only come from their own high consumption, but rather from the fact that they are sharing or shipping or exporting, however you want to name it, very much goods to the rest of the world. Yeah, and this underscores the fact that context is very crucial.
Thank you.
Is it now working? Yes. Okay. So I think Jan and Felix made a pretty good introduction that we got a huge problem here. And I had a pre-assumption, and probably most of you, that switching in the source of energy to renewables is the big solution for this problem. And I'm going to take you now through a quick journey, what data is telling us about the whole thing. And as you can see in the dashboard, we actually see that we are already doing probably not a perfect job, but we see an increase in the share of renewables. So we are actually getting better. We have like a higher share than 40 years ago, for sure. But we also see on the left chart that the CO2 emissions per capita are not perfectly correlated. So perfect correlation, like -1 in this chart, would mean that if we have like 100% share of renewables in the production, we would have 0 CO2 emissions. But you can see we are stable here. We are not getting better. So we have like a -0.4 correlation, but we are, not getting better. What is the main reason for this? As you can see on the top left chart, we are missing one big variable, which is the total consumption of energy. And right now we have the problem that we are getting better on the one variable. So we are getting better in the share of renewables, but not in the overall consumption. And another pre-received idea I had, and probably many of you will have as well, is that it is mainly the rich, wealthy countries with a high GDP that are consuming all of the energy. And the second one, that only also these countries are able and can afford to switch because it is expensive. And as you can see on the left chart, we took a look into the correlation, or perhaps not correlation, between energy consumption and GDP. And we see, so we didn't calculate a correlation, but you can see the higher the GDP per capita, the higher also the energy consumption is. So this pre-received idea I got, and probably many others of you as well, is true. You need energy to increase your GDP. But on the right chart, you can see the distribution of countries based on the income, average income, so lower income statements and the share of renewable energies. And you can see that it is actually the low income states that have the highest average share of renewables and not the high income states. For sure, there are more reasons than only that they want to switch, but probably they do not have the capabilities to just produce as much energy as they actually need. But to sum it all up, the main idea is it is not only the share of renewables, but the game between both the share of renewables and the energy consumption together. So we have to reduce the one, increase the other one. And right now we have the problem that we are increasing the consumption faster than the share of renewables, which is not fucking us, which is the big problem here. And yeah, so it is not only the share of renewables that is the solution, but also to get to decrease our consumption energy.
Thank you. Thank bit more. Thank you, Jasper. So as Jasper mentioned, renewable energy is not everything, but is definitely a big variable in improving the worldwide. Another big preconceived idea that we came up was that investing in renewable energy is something that is not profitable for countries. That is actually far from being true. In this graph, worldwide, this is the correlation, the trade balance for the country with electricity export-import. So in green, countries that are actually exporting a lot of electricity, and in dark gray, countries that are actually importing a lot of electricity. So if I take the case of Canada, Canada is very interesting because it's a country that has been investing a lot historically in hydropower. What happened? They got all this electricity over production and they cannot store it because it's very difficult, blah, blah, blah. So what do? They export it to their neighbor country, the US. And that allowed them in 2003 to gain $9 billion. So it's not something that I wouldn't say that is not profitable. Another little disclaimer on this map is that France, them again, appear as a very strong, like a leader as an exporting country for electricity, but is actually because their main source of electricity comes from nuclear power. Nuclear power is a green energy because it doesn't produce any CO2, but is not a renewable energy. So little disclaimer on this side. So yeah, to sum it up, I would say that definitely investing in renewable energy is something that can be profitable for the countries and that they all should look forward to it. And finally, to finish with machine learning, please. No.
For the machine learning part, probably data science guys could tell you a bit more, but I will try my best to do it. What we did here, we did a clustering for different countries based on their evolution over the last 10 years. The factors you can see on the axis, like the 10 years evolution of CO2 emissions, their share of renewables, and their greenhouse emissions. And like you can see here, we decided for 4 clusters because that was the best way to not be biased. And for example, if we take Luxembourg, we can see like they've got a quite good evolution on CO2 emissions, and their 10 years evolution share of renewables is also positive, which is quite good. Off to the next part, we have the forecast share of renewables, which we did with profit. While I'm going to talk about it, Jan is going to show you the best examples we have for different situations we currently have. And yeah, as well, on the left, you can see the goal in share of renewables each country want to reach. And right under it, you can see the year they want to get to that specific goal. And the black buttons, whatever, are the moment or the evolution of each country over the last years. And the machine learning model we did with it would be the prediction on how they evolve over the next years and if they're going to meet their specific goal or not. Yeah, that's it.
So as a conclusion, to sum it up, don't believe everything you hear in the news, especially when they are not from trustworthy data sources. Make up your own mind, find the facts, find the data from trustworthy sources. And that's all for us. Thanks a lot.